This is part 2 of the walker series on how to use a two-wheeled walker. Now you may think to yourself, it's like, well, there's really not much to using a two-wheeled walker, but hopefully I can offer you some tips that can make it a little bit easier if you are having problems. What this video is going to cover are the do's and don'ts of turning with your walker and when you're walking straight ahead. And lastly, I'm going to go over going up and down curbs. Now, if this is something you've already been doing, hopefully you'll gain some additional tips to make it easier yet. But if you haven't ever done this, you really should not do it unless you're with somebody or have instruction from a physical therapist on how to do it safely. There are 3 key factors that can affect the stability and the smoothness of your turns. The first one is the positioning of your feet in relation to the walker. The second one is how you move your feet while you're making your turn. And the third one is how you move the walker when you're making your turn. We're going to discuss all 3 in detail. You see here in this picture that as you're turning, if you start inside the walker with your feet, when you turn, you and the walker turn as a unit, both your feet and the walker. And that's how it should be. Now, if you're outside of the walker when you start your turn, then the walker is turning separately from your feet, and that causes you to migrate out and makes you less steady, which is something that you want to avoid. Here's a little video clip to show you how it looks. You're inside the walker when you're turning. You and the walker will be turning as a unit, and it's a very stable way of making your turn. Now, if you turn with your feet behind the walker, then the walker and your feet will turn as separate entities, and it's not as stable. How you move your feet when you're turning can help or hinder your turn. Now, this picture shows you the normal dynamics of moving your feet. I often refer to the outside foot as the foot on the outside of the circle. So when you're making a turn, that outside foot, as you see, has to cover more distance to complete the same turn. Compared to the inside foot, it doesn't have to cover as much distance. So when you're turning, always make sure you take a bigger step with that outside foot so it stays caught up with the inside foot. Here's a little video clip to show you how to move your feet while your feet are inside the walker. In addition to staying inside the walker during turns, we need to look at how we position our feet while they're inside the walker during a turn. So the one thing that I've noticed is when people turn, that their outside foot lags behind, and then what happens is they can end up freezing. So that's one thing. The other thing, when people are turning, they might step with the outside foot, but they'll forget about the inside foot, so it gets a little bit more pigeon-toed, and that gets them stuck while they're turning. So when you're turning, this is what you want to do. You want to bring the walker around, pivot that inside foot, and step past with the other foot. So it's walker, and then pivot. So you're turning that foot into the direction that you're walking in, and then step past. Turn the walker, and then you pivot that foot in the direction that you're turning toward, and then step past it. So the positioning of your feet while you're turning is just as important as being inside the walker. Now, when you're making a wider turn, it doesn't have to be as precise. So it's almost like walking straight, but there is a little bit of an arc. So you're just passing one foot after the other, like normal walking, and the bigger arc is a lot easier. If you need more detailed information on turns, you can go to my YouTube channel and look for this video on turns. Next, we're going to take a look on how to move the walker during turns on this next little video clip. When you're turning with a walker, a lot of people tend to pivot on this back leg here when they're turning,
And what happens when they do that is they end up migrating outside of the walker, as you can see. So when you make a turn, what you want to do is make sure you move that back leg so that you stay centered in the walker. So don't pivot on that back leg. So as you see, as I'm moving that left back leg, and you see how well I'm staying centered in the walker. Now I'm making a pretty sharp turn here, and I'm staying well centered throughout the whole time.
Because turns in and of themselves can be destabilizing, it's best not to pick up your walker to make your turn. So what happens is when you're making a turn with a two-wheeled walker, you're going to feel like a vibration when you're making a turn. And this is just a little video clip just to show.
When you're turning on a hardwood floor, you're going to feel and hear a vibration. And just as we did on the carpeting, you want to make sure that you move that back leg when you're turning. So it's walker, pivot, step. Walker, pivot, step. And you just keep repeating that, and just know that that vibration that you feel, that's normal. It doesn't mean anything's going wrong. That's how it will usually feel.
You may wonder, why don't you just put some swivel wheels on the front of the walker? But what happens with two-wheeled walkers, if you put swivel wheels just on the front there, then when you're walking straight, you tend to veer in and out and you lose some of that control. So it's actually more practical to have what they call stationary wheels, which are wheels that don't swivel. Next is a video clip to give you some tips on how to use your two-wheeled walker while you're walking straight ahead.
When walking with a walker, you might see individuals walk with the walker straight out like that, and then it gets away from them. So what you want to do is you're always stepping inside the square of the walker. So as you push the walker forward, you step into the square of the walker, and then again step into the square. So there's always one foot that is ahead of the back legs. So you see I'm always stepping past those back legs, and that way I'm more stable and more controlled. The pressure of my arms are going down. If you have your arms out like this, the pressure of my arms keeps pushing the walker further away from me, which then makes you less stable. So you always want to walk one foot inside the walker, and then you'll be most stable.
A video that I have on my YouTube channel called Everything You Need to Know to Set Up Your Two-Wheeled Walker gives you all sorts of tips in terms of how to adjust the height of the walker, how to position the wheels, should they be inside the frame or outside the frame, which can make a difference going through doorways. It talks about types of skis for the back legs of your walker and how to attach a tray, as well as different type of walker bags you can attach. So take a look at it. It can be helpful. I have two sayings when it comes to exercise in general and walking. The first one is cause no harm, and the second one is falls are not healthy. So keeping that in mind, if you are unsteady and you've never gone up and down a curb with a walker, don't do it unless somebody's with you or if you've been instructed by a physical therapist. So the next couple videos is going to show you the steps on how to go up and down a curb with a two-wheeled walker. So please do it safely. Have somebody with you if you need somebody with you, and absolutely see a physical therapist to help problem solve and individualize solutions specifically for you.
Going up with a two-wheeled walker, you're going to walk all the way up until your front wheels hit the base of the curb. Then you get your feet a little bit closer to the curb, and then you're going to lift the walker and place it on the first step. Now you're going to step a little closer to the curb, you're going to step up, and then you press on. going down a curb, you get the front wheels as close as you feel comfortable to the edge of the curb. Then you step close to the edge of the curb as much as you feel comfortable. And the reason for that is so that you don't have to reach as far when you bring the walker down. So now you're going to bring the walker down and then get a little closer to the edge of the curb, and then you step down.
If you're having trouble with your walking, it's going to require practice, a lot of it, to help improve your walking. So take a look at the tips that I've given to you today and practice those ideas until they start improving. And then once they start improving, practice some more, because that will help reduce the amount of concentration your walking will require. But you're still going to need to practice. So good luck. Thank you.